In my 10 years of working with some of the largest and most influential organizations in the world, I've learned that there's one thing that they do to succeed in the future of work. They create a culture of belonging. This sense that every single person on our team has a voice. Whether they've been with us for 30 years, for 2 years, for 2 weeks, they have a role to play. At its very core, that's what belonging is. I'm here in Louisville. I'm about to speak to over 1,000 executives and leaders all about how do we succeed in the future of work. I'm going to show them that the key is to build a culture of belonging.
Internationally renowned keynote speaker,
workplace belonging expert, and best-selling author.
Smiley's work has been featured in 100 media outlets.
So please welcome to the stage, Smiley.
And it's not just, oh, wouldn't it be nice if everyone has a friend? This is a business case. This is a bottom line issue. Employees who do not feel high levels of belonging double the sick days, lower productivity, lower quality of work. They cost companies $406 billion per year. And on the flip side, belonging is the cure. The first is to reimagine purpose. I think for a long time we've had this sense in the business world that kind of purpose is the mission statement. This is what we're doing. We're so amazing. I think in the new era, purpose is personal. It's not, we're changing the world. It's, we're listening to our people. What are they asking for? So when people are talking about flexibility today, they're not just talking about where, work from anywhere, right? Or I want to work from home, or I want to work from Argentina, or whatever it is. Well, that is not work, that is taking a vacation on the beach. But that's not really what flexibility means anymore. It's more about empowerment, autonomy, have a little bit more agency in terms of the projects they're working on, what they're all about.
I love them. I love this energy. I love the information you have to share.
The industry is changing and we have to think differently. So it was great, it was great.
I think a lot of time we have the sense of like, oh yeah, we had belonging. We all went around the conference room. Everyone got to say something. Or we did a survey. We did a survey. Everyone can fill out the survey. Belonging is something deeper. Belonging is, was everyone's voice listened to?
I feel inspired, honestly, to go back with ideas. So I thought it was a very positive message.
Really thought-provoking. It made me really think about focusing on not just work, but the people.
Whether we're executives, whether we're home office staff, spot on, it really spoke to everybody in the room.
Everyone's a little bit lost. Everyone's looking for more meaning and more belonging in their lives. This guy talked to a random stranger in a city he didn't live in a country he wasn't from, on a bicycle. So I think what I'm getting at here is that we have to create the culture among our teams where people can make those big, bold asks. We're not going to be able to say yes, maybe even half the time or 80% of the time, but we create that culture where people feel seen and heard, valued to express themselves. And I think if we do that, we create a culture of belonging in this room, among our firms, among our companies, among our talent, among the people and the communities that we serve. I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time, working a job that on paper was pretty perfect. Had a decent job, had a salary, had healthcare, had benefits, had job security. I'd go to happy hour and tell everyone my job title. I'm like, that's so cool, let me get your business card. My boss was impressed. My friends were impressed. My parents were very impressed. Everything was perfect about this job except for one tiny but kind of important thing. I was miserable. How did I know I was miserable? Every single morning when my alarm clock would go off at 6 in the morning, I'd feel a shooting pain go up and down my back. Felt it when I got out of bed, when I brushed my teeth, when I put on my suit and tie, when I left the house, when I took the bus to work, when I scanned my ID badge in at the office and rode the elevator up to the 8th floor, when I was sitting at my desk typing memos and talking points, when my boss would email me every single night on my BlackBerry, these BlackBerries back then, at 10 p.m. and 4 in the morning. The pain was so bad it actually turned into shingles on my side. Shingles is gross, Shingles is a nerve disease that's often related to stress, common among people over the age of 80, not 20-somethings like I was at the time. And I was spending a lot of time, like many people, like many young people, but frankly like everyone right now, on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, overdosing on FOMO, fear of missing out, worried about what my friends were doing. So there was my friend going to business school, and I was like, yes, I should get my MBA. There was a friend becoming a teacher, I should become a teacher. There was a friend, she was opening up her own food truck, and I was like, yes, that's it. I definitely should open up a food truck. I'm like not a great chef and the world's worst driver. Bad idea to get in the car with me. And I see a photo of a buddy of mine that I'd gone to college with. He had already graduated from one of the top law schools in the country, got this amazing job at this corporate firm in New York City, was making a ton of money, had a penthouse apartment in New York, and I see a photo of him on Facebook traveling with his girlfriend in Peru, and he's proposing at sunset in front of Machu Picchu. And I'm like, man, like this guy's got it all figured out. He's got this amazing job. He's got the sweet apartment. He's making all this money. I hate my job. I hate my life. Like I can't even get a date on Tinder. My life is over. I'm a goner. I'm never going to make it. And it was actually only when I spent a little bit of time off of social media that I was able to flip this quarter-life crisis, third-life crisis, midlife crisis into a breakthrough and find a little bit more meaning, find a little bit more belonging at work. So today I'm just going to talk through a few lessons I learned on my journey that can help you think about creating more belonging, both for your team, your employees, but perhaps more importantly, for your clients and the communities and the people that we serve. Well, the first lesson I learned is that you have to find believers. You have to surround yourself with people that believe in the beauty of your dreams. Because when I was back in DC, I used to come home every night to my roommate, Dan. And I'd be like, Dan, I don't really want to do this job anymore. I think I want to switch up my whole career. I know I'm almost 30, but I think I want to switch things up. I think I want to become a writer, an author. I think I want to live in California. I've always wanted to live in California. I think I want to start supporting entrepreneurs and people building incredible businesses and products that are actually creating value for their people and their communities. Dan would kind of look at me. He'd roll his eyes. He'd take a swig of beer. He'd take another swig of beer, and he would say, Smiley, suck it up, man. Everyone hates their job. It's part of life. I was like, suck it up. I was 28 at the time, which is old, but not like that old. I really did want to spend the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years of my life depressed, but the truth is, the majority of the world thinks like Dan. The majority of the world's like, you know what? That's your job. That's your work. You're not supposed to like it. You do it. You get a paycheck. You go to happy hour after work, have a beer, get the weekend, go ahead and do everything again on Monday. Well, then I actually met believers. I went to this program called Starting Block, the Starting Block Institute for Social Innovation. It brings together people that are interested in using business for good. This idea that, yes, of course, businesses can and must make a profit. That's why they're businesses, but they also must give back. They also must support their people and their communities. And at Starting Block, I met believers. I met people like Debbie Sterling. Debbie had started Goldie Blocks, which is a toy company that teaches young girls they can become engineers. When Debbie was one of the only female engineering students at Stanford University, she realized that all of the toys that teach building skills and design skills and engineering skills are actually built and designed for the way that young boys learn. If you think about it, Thomas the Tank Engine, Bob the Builder, and a lot of Legos, and a lot of toys at the time that for young girls were Barbie dolls, the pink aisle. She's like, I'm going to create a toy that teaches young girls they can become engineers. I met people like Ted. Ted had started MoneyThink in Chicago, which is a small business that teaches financial literacy and entrepreneurship to youth. I met people like Tom. Tom had started Rising Tide Car Wash in Florida, which is a small for-profit business that employs people who have autism. So I met people like Debbie and Ted and Tom, and they were like, wait a second, Smiley, wait a second. Like, you want to move across the country? You want to live in California? You want to become an author? You want to start writing books? You want to start supporting incredible businesses? Like, you have to do that. A crazy thing happens when you find believers. You also find accountability. Now, normally, you tell someone you're going to write a book, and they're like, everyone's writing a book. You're not going to do it. Normally, you tell someone you're going to come to Next and do all this networking and brain dates, and they're like, yeah, you said that 2 weeks ago. Here's another beer. You're going to switch things up at your company, start an employee resource group, or really train and try to reach the next generation. Like, yeah, you're never going to do it. Here's another beer. Not when you tell believers. I told my friend Evan at this program that I was going to quit my job, start a whole new life and career at the age of 30, and this guy asked me one simple question. When? When are you going to have that talk with your boss? He texted me every single week after that program, Smiley, have you had the talk with your boss yet? Have you had the talk with your boss yet? Have you had the talk with your boss yet? I'd be in meetings with senior government officials, getting calls and texts from Evan like, Smiley, have you had the talk with your boss? I was like, dude, you got to stop calling me. The Secret Service is going to come after me. But the only reason I did have that conversation, moved 3,000 miles across the country, end up writing 3 books, and the only reason we're all standing together in a room and I'm on this stage here in Louisville with all of you today is because people like Evan held me accountable. When you find believers, you find accountability. Now, the next lesson I learned is that you have to stop comparing yourself to others, especially for young people, but frankly everyone, and start caring for others. Stop comparing yourself to others and start caring for others. Because I went back and I interviewed my friend, the baller corporate lawyer. I was like, man, you got it all figured out, don't you? You got the sweet job, penthouse apartment, you're married. What's your secret? What am I doing wrong? And you know what he told me? After 3 years of law school, landing a job at one of the top amazing corporate law firms in the world, he was miserable in his job. He was still happily married, which is wonderful for him. But he was miserable in his job. He was going to go back to graduate school at the age of 30 to become a high school social studies teacher. A history teacher, which is really sweet for him, but what's the lesson there? The grass is always greener, especially for young people constantly comparing themselves to the highlight reels of their friends on TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter. Everyone's a little bit lost. Everyone's looking for more meaning and more belonging in their lives. Stop comparing yourself to others, start caring for others. And I came across this amazing, beautiful book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Has anyone read this book? Put up your hand if you've read this book. I see quite a few hands go up. I think it's one of the best books ever written, also one of the best-selling books ever written. Who is Viktor Frankl? He was a psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust. He was from Austria, and he survived living in a Nazi concentration camp during pretty much everyone around him was being murdered and killed, including his own family, including his own mother, including his own wife. And he was talking to people about what allowed them to go on in the face of near certain death. If you weren't going to die next week, you would die in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, in a month, like you were going to die. And he writes in this book that being human always points and is directed to something or someone other than oneself, be it a meaning to fulfill or another human being to encounter. The more one forgets themselves by giving themselves to a cause to serve or another person to love, the more human they are. So that meaning and belonging come not from what we've been taught by society, accumulating wealth and status and success and power, but from giving it away, from love, from service, from compassion. Now, this doesn't mean that we're all going to go quit our jobs and work for a nonprofit, a charity, a church. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying it means we have to approach our leadership, how we run our firms, how we show up for our people from a place of love, of service, of compassion, of allowing our people to show up and share their gifts with each other. So what I think this looks like visually is helping especially next-gen talent, but frankly everyone in the workplace right now, find a little bit more personal alignment in their role. Not perfection, we're talking about jobs, not a vacation here, right? This is work, it's not perfect. A little bit more personal alignment. How can they align their unique gifts with the impact they're trying to have, surround themselves with a community at work and outside of work that really lights them up inside, and truly care for people within the workday? And if we were all to fill out this Venn diagram right now, we'd have 1,000 completely different definitions of alignment because we're all very unique. Now, Debbie, she started that toy company, Goldie Blox, because of the discrimination that she faced as one of the only female engineering students when she was at Stanford. Ted started MoneyThink in Chicago because he realized he had a lot of opportunities in Chicago that his friends didn't have. Tom started Rising Tide Car Wash in Florida because he saw how difficult it was for his own brother to get a job because his own brother has autism. So meaning and belonging are personal. They require that reflection, and they require us as leaders to make sure that we're having those conversations with our people. If we pull back a little bit, what does this mean in the context of the workplace today, the future of work, the shift to hybrid that we've seen in the post-pandemic context? First of all, for the first time in history, there's 5 generations coming together at work. Of course, we have Gen Z. Those are folks born after 1997. They say you're a part of Gen Z if you do not remember September 11th. The oldest members of Gen Z are just joining the workforce right now. Some people call them iGen or the smartphone generation. This is a generation that does not know a world without smartphones. Millennials, so I'm an elder millennial. I turned 40 this year. Some people call us geriatric millennials. Some people call us the Oregon Trail. That's what I call us, the Oregon Trail generation. Like, you know, we grew up with technology. We get it. We had AOL Instant Messenger. We had email. But like, if you made plans back in the day to meet someone at 7 p.m. and they weren't there, like, that's it. You got stood up. Like, unless there's a payphone and they're one of those cool kids that had a pager, like, you're going home. None of this, like, I'll be there in 5 minutes. My Uber's late. Like, get out of there, going home. Gen X, like, give it up for Gen X. We never talk about Gen X. Yes, we can give a hand, yes. Born 1965 to 1980, often tasked with the brutal responsibility of managing young people. Between millennials and Gen Z, they now make up over 50% of the workforce. Some studies show that in the next 5 to 10 years, because so many baby boomers are retiring, they're going to make up as much as 65 or 70% of the workforce. We have baby boomers, and I think a lot of times people say, oh, baby boomers, they're out the door. It's like, nope, they're still working, and we need to make sure that we celebrate their wisdom, their insight. And we increasingly have people from the silent generation working longer and longer into their lives because out of financial necessity or because they love their work. So we have to create a culture of engagement and belonging that works for everyone, for everyone. I think it is important to focus in a little bit on this next generation, both in terms of next-gen advisors and next-gen investors. Again, iGen. So this is a generation that with 2 clicks can get food, a hotel, right? A date, and then they get to the workplace and suddenly it's like, you mean I can't just swipe right and find meaningful work? I can't just swipe right and get a promotion? It's your 3rd day, you're not getting a promotion. Like, I should change my title, I think. It's like, you've been here 2 weeks. No. However, they're getting, you know, if we're trying to attract next-gen talent, we say, hey, we'll get back to you in 3 weeks. Thanks for the resume. You filled it out on this, like, you know, auto form. We'll get back to you in 3 weeks. 3 weeks? The average young person doesn't remember what happened 2 minutes ago. The average attention span, if you have young children, you'll appreciate this, of a teenager is 20 seconds. 20 seconds. 3 hours a day on TikTok, 20 seconds. Definitely a correlation there. So we have to, when we think about attracting next-gen talent, we have to be timely, fast, digital. It has to be personalized. It has to be about that person. It doesn't mean we hire someone in 20 seconds or 2 hours, but we get back to them. We start that conversation. It feels personal. Hybrid work, not just traditional schedule or title. So sometimes this means being able to work from anywhere, at least not go into the office all the time. Sometimes, but that's not really what flexibility means anymore. It's more about empowerment, autonomy, giving people the flexibility to decide who they are at work. Have a little bit more agency in terms of the projects they're working on, what they're all about. A true commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. According to the Pew Research Center, 50% of Gen Z, 50% identifies as a person of color. 50%. 20% identifies as queer. And then these folks get to the workplace and they do not see that diversity reflected among their employees or certainly among their leadership or their boards, and they start to kind of ask questions. And not just like, hey, something's wrong here, but they're actually like, hey, how do we move forward? How do we hold you accountable? How do we move forward on this? So this is something that is not going away. Personal and professional success. I think it used to be that we expected our careers to definitely provide the professional success. The skills building, the networking, the training, the mentoring, the guidance, building up, kind of rising up that corporate ladder, getting a raise, moving up and up and up in your career. Now it's a little bit more about the personal growth, navigating the tipsy-topsy unknown world that we're living in. And I think if we put ourselves in the shoes of these young people for a second, just think about the world that they've experienced in the last 5 to 10 years, right? With the pandemic, all this economic uncertainty, they want that personal sense of how to be an adult, how to navigate these unknown waters.